My transition from the military into school was a little stressful or a little jolting. While I was really excited to go to school, it had been at least like 4 years, and my experience in high school was not the best. I wasn't the best student, I really didn't know what I wanted to do, and joining the military seemed like a good idea for various reasons. After getting out of the Marines in the end of 2011, I waited a few months and then I started school in January of 2012. So I had a few months to just kind of like chill, you know. I got a dog, which was really helpful. So I guess my experience going into college was, the first day I was really scared and stressed, and I really felt a lot of pressure because the government is paying for school and therefore you have to perform and do well. But I realized that if I just kind of like take a deep breath and take like one step at a time, then I can get the degree. It's just like one day at a time. That's really how I felt.
When I was in the military, I was in a very intense, rigorous culture, and the norms and goals and values were really intense and supported the kind of activities I was doing, which was going on constant missions and fighting and, you know, bringing the fight to the enemy. But now that I'm out, pretty much every single one of those values is inappropriate, and the goals, like I'm not being graded on how many push-ups I can do or how fast I can run 5 miles. Instead, I'm being graded on how well I can generate like a 5-paragraph essay, and then how well I can compare 2 authors. And the thing is that I think it took me more time to learn how to write a good essay than it did to meet the military standard for running 5 miles. And so it's that readjustment and recalibration that is so important. It's realizing you're using a different map, and being very conscious and aware of that, and then shifting accordingly.
Office hours for me was something that was just incredibly intimidating, because, you know, to me, I always saw my professors initially as a commander or as like a superior, and it was really hard to get out of that mindset. So finally, I was comfortable enough with one of my professors, and I went to office hours. And I was thinking it was going to be like, you know, in the military, commanders have open door policies, which very rarely are what they say they are. So I was, you know, fully ready to be kind of turned away or like, you know, looked at weird, but I actually had a really deep and engaging conversation with my professor, and I learned much more about the material, active learning. So I, you know, from that moment on, I was committed to going to office hours. It really, really deepened my education. I wish I would have done more of it. You know, it is very intimidating, but it was probably one of the most helpful tools that, you know, the professor offered.
So office hours are definitely a resource that every professor wants you to use. Nobody at any 4-year college wants their student to fail. And the professors it's not the same as a high school teacher. High school teachers can be mentors, but oftentimes, I went to public school. They have 40 students in a classroom. And this is like multiple periods throughout the day. Here, in a 4-year institution, you can have a little bit more one-on-one time with your educators, and they want to see you in there. If you have any question at all, they are more than happy to answer it. And it's not just the responsibility of the student to do well and you know, do your homework and turn things in on time. And it's not just the responsibility of the professor to teach you and do a good job teaching you. It's like the responsibility of everyone involved, I think, to get together when there's some sort of sticking point and iron out the wrinkles. And I think that's what office hours are for. So any question at all, you should never be too shy or too proud. Even in class, during lecture, if you have a question, raise your hand and ask, because you only get that one fleeting moment before you forget what it was that confused you. So if you ever are sitting in a lecture and you're wondering, what did the professor mean by that? Write it down and then go to their office hours and ask. It's the only way you'll ever find out.
Asking for letters of recommendation can feel a little scary, it can be a little intimidating, but I would highly recommend to get a letter of recommendation from one of your academic advisor or your professor. It'll really help you when you're looking for jobs in your career search. One way to go about this is to get to know your professor, from the beginning. Don't just go at the end of class and say, hey, I was in your lecture, can you please write me a letter of recommendation? It's definitely good. Attend a couple sessions of office hours, get to know them, probably have a good record in their class, and just help them and give them time, give them a couple weeks. I think what's the rule? Like 2 months or something is etiquette. And give them all the information that you need. Tell them exactly what you're applying for. Tell them, how you would hope to come off in the letter, and offer to help them in whatever area they need.
I needed to figure out what I was supposed to do, and that comes into schedules. That comes into what I spend my time doing and my motivations for different things, because I didn't have anyone telling me what to do. So I needed to figure out a reason why I was doing this, and then how did I structure my activities to accomplish those things. It's very much like in the military where you identify a goal and then you work towards it, but the whole problem here is identifying that goal and then realizing the steps that you need to follow in order to accomplish that goal. And kind of like as I was trying to figure that out, I found myself also alone. I'm used to the constant camaraderie of the military, especially in an infantry and especially in the Rangers, where you do everything. You live, eat, sleep next to your buddies and with your buddies, and everyone's working together for the same goal. Here, it's much more independent, and I found myself kind of floundering without a team.
So my experience of asking for help in the military, I can think of like 2 instances, and both were very extreme. And I think they reflect the culture of asking for help while in the military. First instance, I was in South Korea, and I was doing a job that a gunnery sergeant would be doing, whereas I was a lance corporal. I was 20 years old. I had a breakdown because it was just too much work and I couldn't handle it. I could have easily just asked for help, but I didn't even realize that was an option. I didn't even realize that asking for help would actually be helpful to everybody. Secondly, when I was in corporal's course, we were running on the beach and we were carrying ammo cans, and I was struggling to carry these ammo cans because they were each 30 pounds. And I slowed the whole platoon down. But there were actually other things that other Marines were carrying that were far lighter, and we could have switched. And we could have finished first. But I didn't ask because I just thought that it's better to just plow through and feel pain as opposed to actually strategizing and thinking I can carry other things, and somebody's totally fine with carrying this ammo can.
In the military, it's often taboo to ask for help, to say, I don't understand something and I need you to show me how so that I can do it. But in class, that's encouraged. In fact, the professor will most likely enjoy that and remember you, and then give you a better grade maybe in the end, because you care about this. Because no one is, while you might be expected to understand how to disass a weapon in the military just because of what you did in boot camp or some sort of training school, no one expects you to show up to a calculus class and expect to know everything about integration. So asking questions about how to do things in classes is encouraged. And if you don't, you will likely not be able to understand things.
I think one of the big issues with veterans asking for help is that they don't even know when to ask for help. They don't even realize that they need help. One instance I remember personally, I was actually really sick I was taking antibiotics, I was feeling so drowsy, and yet I actually had an exam in 2 hours, and I was struggling to study. I realized right then and there, it was almost like an epiphany. I realized, wow, this actually might be one of those moments that I would actually ask for help. And so I reached out to my academic advisor, and I just asked him, I'm not feeling well, is there any way you can contact my professor and see if I could take the exam at a later date? And I think literally in like 5 minutes, I was granted this like amazing advantage to take the exam 2 days later, like that following Monday. So I had the entire weekend to recover. I think that we're scared to ask for help because we think it shows weakness, but quite frankly, nobody gives a damn about how weak we look. And nobody's thinking about our weakness. It's just sort of like a yes or no. Yes, I can do that. No, I can't. I can't help you with this. I can help you with that. And it's just such a silly fear, and we all need to help each other. I know as veterans, we would, if we could help the world, we would. We are willing to help everybody. Why can't we ask someone to help us, even just for like the smallest things? And so asking for help and recognizing when we need help, just taking that step back, I think is like so important, and it's really advantageous in academic success.
In the military, you get injured, you get put on profile, hopefully, and you heal up so you can get back at the mission. In the military, physical wellness is tremendously important. It's put at the highest priority because you can't accomplish your mission if you're broken, all right? Now, when you get out, there's all these challenges and struggles, and you're not working physically the way you were in the military. There's a reliance on making sure that your back is working well, right? But there is another component that is working very hard the same way your body was in the military. It's your mind now. So physical health is to the military what mental health is to college. And it can be very difficult, especially with all the challenges and stresses of vets getting out, that it can put a tremendous amount of stress and burden on an individual. And so it's important to identify and be okay with the fact that things won't be going right all the time, and to identify when they're not, so that you can reach out for help. There's no way I would have been able to make this far, and a lot of people I know be able to make this far if they didn't reach out for help, and they didn't make sure, they didn't reach out to school resources, to the VA, to make sure that they got the help they needed. Whether that means seeing a counselor, or seeing your doctor, or any amount of that. It's all about identifying when things aren't going right, when you're not feeling right, when you're not acting right, and then addressing those issues head on, rather than letting them linger and turn into something bigger than it would be, than it needed to be, that could have been prevented.
I think the number one place to know on campus, especially for student veterans, for anybody really, is to know where the mental health resources are located. It is extremely important for you, your career, to keep your mental health in check. So know where that is, and know yourself, listen to yourself, know when it's time to get a checkup.
When transitioning to school, I think a really powerful resource for veterans to use, I mean all students, but in this case veterans to use, are mental health resources. Whether it's talking to your advisor, who can often be that person, or actually talking to a professional that's at the school. I think it's really important because veterans, there's a lot when it comes to transition. You're stressed, scared, tired, confused. It's been forever since you actually had to read something. But you think that you're the only one who's experiencing it, and you think you're the only one who's going through it, and you think you're the only one who's doing it, and you think you're the only one who doesn't know how to deal with it. But in fact, majority of students, actually, there's a large percentage, I know at my school is close to 60% of the graduating class had spoken with someone, a counselor, at some point in time during their college career. So I think that that's one of the most important resources. I think once your mental health, even if you just talk to a counselor once, just to kind of recalibrate your mind, I believe that mental health, if you have that in check, then everything else is going to fall into place.